the human they were told not to touch. The Galactic Peacekeeper Academy stood tall against the horizon like a giant spear pointed toward the stars. Its silver towers rose through the low clouds surrounding Eclipta Station. Hundreds of cadets filled the open plaza. Some had scales. Some had glowing eyes. Others had mechanical limbs or skin made from advanced synthetic material. The air smelled of ozone and sterilizers. Everything looked perfect. Then Daniel Carter walked through the front gate. And suddenly, all eyes turned toward him. The human limped forward slowly. One arm rested in a sling. Fresh stitches crossed his forehead. A heavy medical boot covered his left foot. Purple bruises stretched across his ribs beneath his uniform. Every step looked painful. But Daniel never complained. He simply adjusted the duffel bag on his shoulder and kept walking. The laughter started almost immediately. Groups of cadets whispered. Then the whispers became jokes. Then the jokes became open mockery. Earthborn. Someone laughed. Looks like he lost a fight with gravity. Another cadet pointed at the medical boot. I thought humans were supposed to be tough. More laughter followed. Daniel ignored every word. He just kept moving. That only encouraged them. A large Vusk cadet stepped away from his squad. He was nearly 2 feet taller than Daniel and covered in thick green muscle plates. The alien blocked the entrance ramp. No combat augments, the Vusk asked loudly. No adaptive armor? No genetic enhancements? His squad laughed behind him. The Vusk leaned closer. How did someone like you even get accepted here? Daniel finally stopped walking. Slowly, he lifted his head. Their eyes met. The smile disappeared from the Vusk's face. If you come any closer, Daniel said calmly, you're leaving without your limbs. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the entire squad burst into laughter. The Vusk laughed the hardest. But before he could respond, a loud chirp echoed across the plaza. Everyone looked up. The Academy scanner above the gate flashed bright red. That humans evolved without natural weapons. Daniel laughed. The commander didn't. That was the worrying part. You have no claws. No venom. No armor. No biological enhancements. Halvet paused. And somehow that makes you more dangerous. Daniel looked away. He wasn't sure how to respond to that. Before he could answer, Halvet's wrist terminal activated. A new message appeared. The commander's expression changed instantly. The humor vanished. The room suddenly felt colder. Daniel noticed. What happened? Halvet stared at the screen. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he looked directly at Daniel. Tomorrow morning. His voice was serious. You're being assigned to a live incident response simulation. Daniel frowned. So you're not going alone. The commander enlarged the briefing file. A full squad roster appeared. Multiple species. Multiple specialties. High-risk environment. Complex extraction scenario. Daniel stuttered the names. One stood out immediately. Jorak. The alien grinned when he saw it. Looks like we're partners. Daniel shook his head. This is going to be a disaster. Jorak laughed. Probably. Neither of them knew how right he was. Because somewhere inside that simulation, a single mistake was waiting. And before it was over, someone was going to get hurt. Part 4, the day the simulation became real. The briefing started before sunrise. Every member of Squad Bravo 9 sat around a circular tactical table. A holographic battlefield floated above the center. Collapsed industrial structures. Narrow corridors. Toxic atmosphere zones. Multiple hostile positions. And one objective. Hostage extraction. Commander Ruzek stood at the front of the room. His deep voice filled the chamber. This is a live incident response simulation. He pointed toward the hologram. Limited equipment. No drone support. No combat enhancements. Minimal resources. The room grew quiet. This wasn't designed to be easy. It was designed to break teams apart. Daniel stood near the back. Silent as always. Jorak sat beside him. Across the table, several squad members looked uncertain. Especially the smaller Ivona Scout. She glanced toward Daniel. Then toward the warning label attached to his personnel file. The one everyone knew about. The red hazard classification. The Ivona crossed her arms. We're really bringing him. Daniel didn't even look up. No. Everyone turned toward him. Daniel continued reading the mission data. I'm bringing you. Jorak nearly choked trying not to laugh. The Ivona rolled her eyes. But even she smiled a little. The tension eased. For a moment. 30 minutes later, they entered the simulation zone. Massive steel towers surrounded them. Artificial fog drifted between broken structures. Emergency lights flashed overhead. Warning sirens echoed through the ruins. Everything looked real. Almost too real. The simulation countdown began. 10. 9. 8. Daniel adjusted his brace. 7. 6. 5. Jorak checked his equipment. 4. 3. The Ivona crouched into position. 2. 1. Simulation active. Immediately, the squad spread out. Everyone moved according to the plan. Daniel stayed near the center. Watching. Listening. Analyzing. The first hostile appeared only minutes later. A combat drone emerged from behind a damaged barrier. Energy rounds flashed across the corridor. The squad scattered. The Ivona moved left. Jorak moved right. Daniel went straight forward. Because that's where the opening was. The drone tracked him instantly. Too late. Daniel was already inside its firing angle. He slipped behind cover. Used the wall. Close distance. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. Then he exploded forward. His elbow crashed into the machine's sensor array. The drone spun sideways. Daniel followed with a knee strike. Metal buckled. A second elbow strike ended the fight. The drone collapsed. Mission clock continued. The squad pushed deeper. Room by room. Hallway by hallway. Every objective completed on schedule. Everything was working. Too well. Then something changed. At first, nobody noticed. A minor systems warning flashed across the network. Then disappeared. The squad kept moving. Another warning appeared. This time longer. Then vanished again. Jorak frowned. You see that? Daniel nodded. Yeah. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. A few minutes later, they entered the next sector. The environment changed immediately. Narrow passages. Limited visibility. Multiple blind corners. Exactly the kind of place where mistakes happened. The squad advanced carefully. Then a scream echoed through the corridor. Everyone froze. The sound wasn't part of the simulation. Daniel knew the difference instantly. A second scream followed. Pain. Real pain. Not simulated. Real. The squad sprinted toward the sound. They found the injured cadet seconds later. She was lying against a damaged wall. One arm bent unnaturally. Her face pale with shock. Daniel's stomach tightened. That wasn't simulated damage. That was an actual injury. Nearby, a combat drone stood motionless. Its systems flickered erratically. Sparks jumped across exposed circuits. The machine wasn't following program commands anymore. It had malfunctioned. And it was still active. The drone suddenly turned. Its sensors locked onto the injured cadet. Then it moved. Fast. Far too fast. The damaged machine charged forward. The cadet tried to crawl away. She couldn't. Daniel didn't think. Didn't calculate. Didn't hesitate. He moved. His injured foot screamed the moment he pushed off. He ignored it. The distance disappeared in seconds. The rogue drone swung first. Daniel ducked. Its arm missed his head by centimeters. The machine adjusted immediately. Daniel stepped inside. Closer. The exact place where machines hated fighting. The drone fired another strike. Daniel blocked. Pain exploded through his ribs. Still he kept moving. The injured cadet was behind him. That was all that mattered. The machine lunged again. Daniel launched upward. Both knees slammed into its chest plate. The impact shook the corridor. The drone staggered. Daniel landed awkwardly. Pain shot through his ankle. Still not enough. Not yet. The machine recovered. Daniel attacked first. One elbow. Crack. A sensor shattered. Second elbow. Crack. Another system failed. Third elbow. The strongest one. The drone collapsed. Sparks burst from its optic housing. The machine hit the floor. Dead. Silence followed. Daniel immediately turned. Medical team. The injured cadet nodded weakly. Emergency personnel were already moving. Relief flooded through the corridor. But Daniel barely noticed. Because another drone appeared. At the far end of the hallway. Fully operational. Fully armed. And heading straight toward them. The squad prepared to fight. But Daniel stepped forward first. Jorak grabbed his shoulder. Your ribs. Daniel looked at him. Then at the injured cadet. Then at the approaching machine. Not important. Before anyone could stop him. He charged. The second drone never had a chance. Minutes later, emergency control shut down the entire exercise. Every simulation ended immediately. Every cadet was evacuated. Every drone was inspected. The malfunction had triggered a full academy investigation. The injured cadet survived. She would recover. But the accident sent shockwaves through the academy. For the first time in years, a training exercise had become dangerous. That evening Daniel sat in the medbay once again. The Earthborn doctor scanned his ribs. Then scanned them again. Then sighed. A very long sigh. Daniel already knew what that meant. You pushed too hard. He smiled weakly. There it is. The doctor glared at him. Your cartilage is inflamed. Your ankle is swollen. Your recovery is delayed. She pointed directly at him. And somehow you're smiling. Daniel shrugged. The doctor handed him fresh wraps. You saved a cadet. Daniel looked down. He hadn't thought about it that way. The doctor softened slightly. She'll be okay. For the first time all day, Daniel relaxed. Just a little. Later that night, he returned to his dorm. Exhausted. Bruised. Barely able to walk. A note was taped to his door. Simple. Handwritten. Thank you for coming back for me. Cadet Rena. Daniel stared at the note for several seconds. Then folded it carefully. A quiet knock sounded behind him. Jorak stood in the hallway, holding 2 protein packs. The alien smiled. You know what they are calling you now? Daniel groaned. I don't want to know. Jorak laughed. Oh, you definitely do. He handed Daniel one of the packs. Then grinned. Hazard class friendly. For the first time in days. Daniel laughed. It hurt. A lot. But somehow. It was worth it. What neither of them realized was that the Academy administration had been watching everything. The reports. The footage. The rescue. The leadership. The teaching. The influence. And tomorrow morning, a decision would be announced. A decision that would change Daniel's future at the Academy forever. Part 5, The Human Who Changed the Academy. The next morning, Daniel Carter expected another training session. Another lecture. Another visit to the med bay. Maybe another warning from the Earth-born doctor. What he did not expect was a formal summons from the Academy Command Council. The notification appeared on his datapad just after breakfast. Mandatory attendance. Command Chamber 7. Priority status. Daniel stared at the screen. Across the table, Jorak looked over his shoulder. That's usually either very good or very bad. Daniel sighed. Helpful as always. You're welcome. 30 minutes later, Daniel stood outside Command Chamber 7. The doors slid open. Inside sat some of the most powerful officers in the Academy. Species from across the galaxy. Military instructors. Combat analysts. Diplomatic observers. Even Commander Halvet was present. Daniel immediately knew this wasn't routine. The room fell silent as he entered. One officer activated a display. Images appeared in the air. His arrival at the Academy. The fight at the gate. The combat evaluations. The simulations. The rescue of Cadet Rena. Weeks of footage. Weeks of reports. Weeks of observations. Daniel looked around. What exactly is this? A senior officer answered. A review. Daniel didn't like the sound of that. The officer continued. When you arrived, we believed you were a risk. Several council members nodded. Your combat profile concerned us. Your injury tolerance concerned us. Your fighting style concerned us. The officer paused. Then a new image appeared. A crowded training gym. Alien cadets practicing together. Learning together. Improving together. Because of him. But that assessment was incomplete. The room remained silent. Another report appeared. Cross-species combat performance. Team cohesion improvements. Simulation success rates. Tactical adaptation metrics. Every category had increased significantly. Daniel frowned. The officer smiled slightly. You didn't just teach combat. You taught understanding. That surprised him. More than any warning ever had. The officer looked directly at him. The Academy has reached a decision. Daniel waited. So have I. The entire room seemed to lean forward. We are authorizing a new elective program. A large title appeared on the display. Human Close Quarters Combat Adaptation. Instructor Recommendation, Daniel Carter. Daniel blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked at Halvet. The commander was trying very hard not to smile. You've got to be kidding. No. Several council members actually laughed. Daniel looked back at the display. You're making me an instructor. A student instructor. That's worse. Now everyone laughed. For the first time, Daniel realized something. They weren't afraid of him anymore. Not really. They respected him. That felt strange. Almost uncomfortable. But not unpleasant. 2 weeks later, the new program officially launched. Daniel walked into Gym Module 4. And immediately regretted everything. More than 50 cadets were waiting. Every seat was filled. Every wall was lined with observers. Several instructors had shown up. Even some officers were watching. Jorak sat in the front row looking entirely too pleased with himself. Daniel dropped his bag. The room became quiet. Everyone waited. Expecting some inspiring speech. Some legendary wisdom. Some great lesson. Daniel looked around. Then pointed toward the floor. Line up. The cadets blinked. That was it. That's the introduction. Jorak asked. Yes. Terrible introduction. Thank you. The training began. Slowly at first. Then faster. Daniel adapted every lesson for different species. Different bodies. Different strengths. Different weaknesses. He taught principles instead of techniques. Balance. Timing. Positioning. Adaptation. The things that mattered in every fight. The gym became a laboratory. Ideas flowed both directions. Humans learned from aliens. Aliens learned from humans. The Malari twins created new spinning elbow variations. The Ivona developed footwork systems nobody had seen before. Jorak improved clinch control using his forearm structure. Even Daniel learned things. A lot of things. For the first time, combat wasn't about winning. It was about growing. Together. Months passed. The program expanded. Attendance doubled. Then tripled. Soon other academies requested copies of the curriculum. Combat analysts published studies. Military observers attended classes. One report described human combat as an adaptive system built around efficiency rather than superiority. Daniel liked that description. Because it was true. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the toughest. They adapted. That was their real strength. One afternoon, after class ended, Commander Halvet approached him. The commander handed him a small data pad. Daniel opened it. His eyes widened. What is this? A recommendation. For what? Halvet folded his arms. Graduation honors. Daniel almost dropped the datapad. You're joking. I am not. Daniel stared at the screen. Highest tactical adaptation rating. Outstanding leadership performance. Cross-species contribution award. The list continued. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, Halvet spoke. You know what impresses me most? Daniel looked up. The commander pointed toward the training floor. Several cadets were still sparring. Laughing. Learning. Working together. None of them fear you anymore. Daniel watched quietly. The commander nodded. They trust you. That hit harder than any punch. Because when he first arrived, nobody wanted him there. Now they were building something together. Something bigger than combat. Something bigger than species. Something bigger than the academy itself. Months later, the scanner at the front gate still flashed red whenever Daniel passed. The old warning remained. Earthborn detected. Do not engage. High risk of limb damage. Cadets still laughed when they saw it. Not because they were mocking him. Because everyone knew what came next. A new line had been added beneath the warning. Smaller than the others. But far more important. Instructor clearance granted. Do not engage unless you're ready to learn. Daniel stopped and looked at it. Just for a moment. Then adjusted the strap on his brace. His foot still hurt sometimes. His ribs still ached on cold mornings. Some scars never disappeared. That was fine. Scars were proof of where you'd been. Proof that you kept moving forward. Around him, cadets stepped aside. Not because they feared him. Because they respected him. Jorak appeared beside him. You know, the alien said, when you first arrived, everyone thought you were a weapon. Daniel smirked. And now? Jorak looked around at the academy. At the students. At the instructors. At everything that had changed. Then he smiled. Now they know you're a teacher. Daniel shook his head. Together they walked through the gate. This time nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. Nobody doubted. They simply made room. And maybe, for the first time since arriving among the stars, Daniel Carter finally felt like he belonged. The end.